Good morning, folks. This is Mr. Dan coming to you from the Landscape Design Classroom, and today I'm going to talk to you about boutonnieres and floral pocket squares. The main idea here, how can I design single and multiple bloom boutonnieres? So why, where, and how are boutonnieres worn? Why? Worn for weddings, proms, and other celebrations. Where? As an accent pinned to the lapel or buttonhole of a man's suit or coat. How? Worn as an accessory. It coordinates with the theme of the event and complements the man's partner. So some definitions here. Boutonniere, which is floor worn on the man's lapel, maybe a single bloom with or without added filler, foliage, or accessories, and may have multiple flowers, more elaborate extras, or even be designed as a floral pocket square. Corsage, which is adding a bow, turns a boutonniere into a women's corsage, and that can be worn either on the female's chest or on the arm. So foliage examples: real or artificial greenery, leaves, ferns, and filler examples would be baby's breath and grasses. Accessory examples would be colored wire or pearls. So history of boutonnieres: in the early days, 18th century England, which is where ladies carried nosegays, which are small handheld bouquets. Men tucked a flower into their lapel buttonholes. So the purpose was to ward off evil spirits and disease, or to cover bad smells of the time. French word for buttonhole was boutonniere. In 1940s, Hollywood, the current day, 1940s leading men wore a boutonniere or single-stemmed flower head as a fashion statement and gentleman's accessory. Typically, you don't really see a lot of boutonnieres in movies anymore unless it's for an extremely fancy event in some hoity-toity film. So today, boutonnieres are usually worn only at weddings, proms, and other formal occasions. So selecting your plant materials, a little bit about boutonnieres. It should coordinate with the occasion. It adds color to the man's clothing. Flowers should be fresh, properly conditioned, and well hydrated. Then flowers and materials should last 3 hours or longer without water. So some of the types of flowers used are carnations, gardenias, and roses were first used. Red and white were traditional colors from the mid 1800s to the Hollywood era. Today's flowers are much smaller. Some examples would be mini carnations, stephanthus, orchids, bachelor buttons, etc. I will let you come back to this stuff, and you can check that out through the PowerPoint available through Canvas. Some other things used here can be succulents, herbs, and other objects. So a boutonniere should fit the size of the lapel jacket or jacket lapel. Often a single flower, enhanced with floral or belly filler, foliage, and accessories. Accessories in scale to the finished size, about the size of a golf ball, roughly. So flower preparation and wiring techniques, 5 main wiring techniques, which we've talked about in a previous lecture, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. So we have hook, which are composite flowers, piercing, which are flowers with a soft, hollow or soft fleshy stems, insertion, flowers with a large calyx, clutch wire, delicate flowers, and hairpin, which are flowers with tubular florets, such as stephanotis. Some wiring choices: hollow stem, 22 gauge wire, oversized flower stems replaced with wire to reduce bulk. Roses, 22 gauge wire, cut stem and wired 2 inches, and thin stiff stems, 24 gauge wire. So some basic designs. We have a 1 flower design, which is choose the flower, removing unwanted petals and wiring the flower. Add foliage and accessories and tape in place with floral tape, and add 2 boutonniere pins. Step by step for one of these: 1, you're going to gather supplies, 1 good quality flower, your foliage and accessories, wire and floral tape. So your foliage here is going to be the leatherleaf fern here to go along with your carnation. Then you have your floral tape and wire. So second step is you're going to prep that flower. You're going to remove any unwanted or damaged petals and clip stem to the appropriate length. And sometimes your length is going to vary depending on how long you want that boutonniere to be. So third step, wire the floral stem. This photo below shows the piercing technique used for carnations, which is taking a wire through both sides of it. And more steps to piercing. You want to bend down the wires, tape beginning at the calyx for the carnation, and having a nice two-stranded wire coming down is going to wind up real nice. So number 4, this is optional. You can add cotton. Water-soaked cotton adds to the flower base, increases the shelf life of the flower. So if it's not going to be used immediately and you need to have a lot of these prepped, you can add cotton in there to nourish the plant a little bit so it doesn't die as quickly as it normally would. 5th step, wrap stem with tape. Use floral tape to finish wrapping around the wired flower. So let's take a look at a step-by-step one flower boutonniere. So, or the end of it, I mean, sorry. You can add foliage, filler, and accessories. Complements the flower, adds visual interest, and makes the design unique. Photo shows wrap techniques used for wiring a fern. The hairpins shaped wire rest on the stem. Then one side of the wire is wound around the stem. So as you can see down here, you are taking the wire, putting it right over top, and then just wiring it down underneath. So we just went over adding foliage, but now we want to wrap everything up. So you want to combine the flower, foliage, and accessories and wrap everything together with floral tape. So you're going to have a lot of floral tape going in here. That stuff's relatively thin, so it shouldn't get too bulky for you. So 7, make sure you get everything wrapped up. As you can see, you can wrap this around a pencil if you desire and have a nice little curly cue at the end. And in 7, you can wrap everything continued. Your finished boutonniere with pins, and you place it in the bag. So with a multiple flower design, you're going to add odd number. An odd number is more pleasing to the eye in a floral design. So you want to make sure you have one complementary flower in, or one primary flower and 2 complementary flowers at the least. I typically wouldn't go over 3 though. Wire each bloom individually and tape the stems with floral tape. Secure everything into place. And add a bow to make this a corsage for a lady. So taking this and adding a bow to it can make a nice corsage for a lady. So let's talk about pocket square pocket boutonnieres. A unique alternative without pins. Decorated piece of cardboard is at the base. Cut to fit pocket with 1 inch more than pocket depth. Uses flowers and embellishments, and materials should fit the occasion. Color scheme, and not too heavy. So some pocket square examples would be a cardboard rectangle used at the base, and everything is tied in at the top right here, but you have a band going around keeping that in place. So that's a nice little, I kind of prefer boutonnieres myself, but this is a nice pocket square that can, you know, if you want to go that route, you can. So kind of sometimes it actually looks a little more official too. So boutonniere placement, since many jackets are no longer designed with a buttonhole, flowers are attached directly to the lapel, which is the little part that comes down here. So just below the shoulder near the collarbone, about 4 inches from the man's shoulder above the heart, and fastened to the left side of the jacket. So putting the boutonniere place, you want to make sure it's fastened to the man's left lapel, as you can see on the picture here to the left, just slightly below the neckline, but right above the heart. So you want to be pinned from the top down at an angle. Just make sure you don't stab yourself with it whenever you're putting it in. And bottom line here, a boutonniere is a man's floral accessory worn for a special occasion. The techniques used in constructing a man's boutonniere can also be used as a starting point for a woman's corsage. We will be doing these in class for graduation and for prom if any students want to make a purchase for those. But we'll be taking a little more of these in class, but that's the end of my lecture. So I appreciate your time, folks. Have a great day. If you have any questions, just get in touch with me down here in the landscape design classroom.